Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt here with Dean McMurray, and this is your Daily Dose of Happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. Dean is sitting in for Cindie Chavez. She decided to take the day off here, and she'll be back next week. But Dean will also be back next week because he's my new Tuesday co-host.
Woo-hoo.
So David Strickle is moving on to do some other stuff. He'll be back occasionally. We'll have him in occasionally to do a little streaming because I don't know if you know David at all, but he's kind of Abraham Hicks-esque in that he streams source energy. He basically is able to channel source energy.
Nice.
Fascinating. Really, really cool. Yeah. It's like talking to him when he's in connection is like talking to Esther Hicks, but in a more gritty environment.
I love it.
And it's good. It's fun. It's been great having him on the show, and we'll definitely have him back, as a guest periodically.
Right.
But from now on, you're the guy on Tuesday, and we actually have a guest we're going to have on our first show. I'll tell people more about her on the day, but her name is Serenity Sam, and she has some interesting background, been through all of the junk that you can go through to try to learn how this stuff works.
Sure.
She has like years and years of background of going through the horrible stuff, the dark nights of the soul and all that kind of thing. So, it's going to make some good conversation.
That should be fascinating to hear her story.
No kidding. Yeah.
Right.
It's going to be good.
I'm excited for that.
But I had a sort of an epiphany last night at around 4 a.m. Yeah. No, it was a good one. It was a good
okay.
one. Yeah. No, we don't. Not that kind. No.
Not that kind.
I'm not that guy.
Okay.
No. This is a good one. And it's on a topic that, we've all addressed. Anybody who's in these LOA circles has addressed this topic on numerous occasions. But I just saw it from a slightly different perspective than I had ever seen before. And so I wanted to bring it up to talk with you today, see if I could get your perspective on it.
Sure.
It's the basic concept of self-love, and it comes up an awful lot. It comes up usually when people are having trouble manifesting something, or maybe they're dealing with some sort of past tape that keeps playing in their heads and it keeps coming back and haunting them, or there's a variety of ways that it comes up. But I realized something about it that just kind of jarred me and kind of shook me out of my complacency or something. I'm reaching for all the cliches, but I'm trying to express it was really cool. And what I realized is that self-love is actually at the root of conscious creation. And not only is it at the root of it, but we have a tendency to treat it as if it were an on-off switch, as if it were black and white. We'll talk to somebody who's having an issue. Oh, well, your self-love isn't there. You need to work on some self-love.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is everybody loves themselves to one degree or another.
Right.
It's a matter of degree that we're really talking about. And when I realized that was the case, then my mind made this big connection. Well, not only is it a matter of degree, but it's a way of measuring why it is that either we're getting what we're looking for or we're not getting what we're looking for. Because I think we can draw a direct connection. If we are loving ourselves enough, if we're feeling enough self-love, self-esteem, self-confidence, have a strong enough self-image, then our belief is going to be strong enough so that we can attract what we're trying to attract into our lives.
Right.
But if it's just not quite there, that's when the resistances kick in.
Right.
So I'm titling this episode, I went through a couple different titles differently. Actually, I'm not sure which one I'm sticking with, but is your self-esteem, is your self-love enough? Is it enough self-love? And as I started thinking about that more and more, thinking makes it sound like I was sitting back and pausing like the thinking statue. No, it was like, thoughts were like shooting through my mind faster than I could keep up with them. It was that kind of a thinking session. But as I was thinking about them, it just really dawned on me, every single issue we can come up with that people address or raise in some way for other people to address all boil down to how much self-love are you experiencing and feeling for yourself. And along with that goes the idea that there is no ceiling to it. No amount of self-love is too much.
Right.
And I want to touch on that for a second too,
Yeah.
because people often say, well, what about a narcissist? What about
Right.
a greedy
Right.
person or something
Well,
like
and
that?
guilty, the emotion of
Yeah.
guilt, and
Yeah.
start how much is too much, because in our 3D way of thinking, we think in that singular plane of saying either you got it all in one basket or the other. It's, or do you try to balance it out,
Hmm.
saying, you know, um, it by trying to give myself too much self-love in order to manifest that which I'm seeking or trying to attract. Is that, in a sense, am I creating an environment that's narcissistic, or am I creating something that is very, I don't think greedy is the right word, but I think a
Well, there are
lot of
different ways you
these,
can look at it. I
yeah,
mean,
but
there are
I
lots of
think a
different
lot of
variations.
these, yeah, I think a lot of these emotions come up. One that comes up, and I know this is moms, right? My
Mhm.
wife always used the term guilty moms,
Okay.
and because moms are very typical. Not all moms. I don't want to put every mother.
Sure.
Sometimes dads, but when they take time from themselves, typically, or spend money on themselves, what happens? They feel guilty because they think that money needs to go to my family, or the time, or whatever they're doing. Could translate to a similar situation where, if you're giving yourself that, paying attention to your own needs, and saying, I need this self-love for myself first before others can give it to me. I need to, saying, oh my God, don't you think I should take some of that love and give it to my family? Well, you know, um, I think some people conversely go to the other way too. And they, feel so incredibly guilty when they start doing it. But when you can see what you can manifest for you and your family, or your loved ones around you, or whomever, and saying, by concentrating on myself, by giving myself self love instead of seeking it from others and things around me, and understanding that it comes from within and it's already there, it always has been, but to allow it to radiate, if you will, I can thereby be a better mother, father, brother, dad, whatever, and employee, boss, and just a better human, right? And but feel better inside, in a sense. And then also, conversely, attracting the things that you want in your life, those great people that you want in your tribe, so to speak, those
Yes.
material objects, whether it's more money or that new house or vehicle or whatever the case is.
Yep.
When we detach from, because really the idea of needing anything is really a false aspect. We shouldn't need anything. We shouldn't need validation from people. We shouldn't, like our say our wife or a husband or a partner. We shouldn't need validation from our children. We shouldn't even need validation from ourselves, because we should know that we're already connecting to source, right? And understand that we're still dealing with these human emotions, being in this meat suit still. And it's kind of that dance, I call it. One day you're sitting on top of the mountaintop and you're zen and everything is good, and then the next day you're dealing with life, and you're struggling, you're trying to swim against the current instead of with it. So yeah, I think that's important. Self-love is huge, because so many people seek it outside of themselves instead of realizing. There was a meme that was going around there for a while, and it was, I think a couple people standing there, and one had, like a heart that said love, and saying, or sorry, happiness, and saying, "Oh my God, where'd you get that? I've been looking all over for it," and saying, "I had it inside me the whole time. And, I created it. It was mine." So understanding that, we're looking for things to make us happy, you really never will. And I know I'll get some argument on that because Sandine, you know, if you've ever had a kid, children, they make you immensely happy, all the love and everything. Yes, but at the same time, you should love yourself and be happy with yourself before the outward projection of that emotion. Because if you're not showing yourself enough love in the beginning, number one, you're going to have problems manifesting things in your life. And number two, you're going to have challenges in life to also receive that emotion of love. Because, one of the things I still remember when my wife and I were dating at the time, and I said, "I just got one question for you." I said, "Do you," and I wasn't even in touch with my spiritual side.
Okay.
Must have been the universe working through me, right?
Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
And that we'll go with that. And but I said, and in all seriousness, I said, "Are you happy with yourself? Are you truly, meaning, do you need, yes, obviously, she can put up with me. I make her happy. But at the same time, are you happy with yourself first? Because if somebody shows up in your life and you're not happy with you, nobody else is going to make you, they're not going to fill that void. There's still going to be something missing. There's going to be a part of the equation that's still, and so the self-love aspect. And then the age-old question comes back to, well, how do I get, if I've lost connection with myself or that love, that self-love, how do I find it again? How do I, feels like I'm walking around in a dark room with a extension cord trying to look for the outlet. Like, where do I plug into this at? Trying to walk around in the dark and be like, I know something's missing. And we see that all the time, right? So especially like we have friends that some that are fill it with addictions. We see that all over in life, but some shopping, right? Can be anything from sex, drugs, rock and roll, whatever, right? So it can go from one extreme to the other. We hope that these are healthy things that we're trying to bring into our life, but it's does that even make sense?
Yeah. You've raised a number of good points there, and
Right.
I'll try to go through a few of them and point out a few things that I was thinking about last night that tied into what
Yeah.
you were talking about. First, I wanted to go to the topic of narcissism, which I brought up, the narcissistic
Right.
concept. And I realized that this is actually something I thought about before last night. I realized that there is a flaw in the way we think about narcissism, particularly within LOA circles. And that flaw becomes evident when we see the way, say, a psychologist or a psychotherapist would look at a narcissist. Because the way they look at a narcissist, I mean, it's considered a mental illness. And they actually have in their diagnostic manual, they have like factors to look at to identify, is this person a clinically diagnosable narcissist?
Right.
And all of those factors basically add up to, I'm kind of broadly generalizing here, but I think I'm fairly safe in doing this. They basically add up to one thing. The person who's narcissistic is always looking outside of himself to get love from everybody else. And as soon as I frame it that way, I realize that's a person who doesn't love themselves very much. Yeah. So it's really inaccurate to say that if you love yourself too much, you become a narcissist. It's quite opposite. It's when you don't love yourself nearly enough, not even like a little bit, like not even nearly enough. That's when you tend to become a narcissist, because you believe falsely that you can't get it inside. So the only place you can go is to get it from somebody else.
Is outside. Right.
So that's the true nature of narcissism, in my view. You also raised a very interesting point about the parent-child relationship.
Yeah.
And once again, I think that actually we can point to the idea that there are no limits to how much you can love yourself, even in a
Right.
parent-child relationship, because the idea that you shouldn't be loving yourself when you should be loving your child is basically the idea that says love
Yeah.
is finite. There's only so much love to go around. It's scarce. And when you frame it that way, you realize, well, that's not true.
It's like, right.
You know, I mean, the
Yeah.
example of Cindie Chavez and I like to use is, you know, when you're on the airplane and they're reading to you the instructions about what to do in an emergency, and they say,
Right.
if there is an emergency and the air masks drop down, put the mask on your own face before you put it on your
Right.
child's face. Why? Because you have to have the oxygen so you can put it onto the
Right.
child's face. So
Yes.
it's actually imperative to love yourself a lot before you
Yes.
can give any love to anybody else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Another thought that came to my mind too was we tend to kind of downgrade it in terms of I framed it as greediness or selfishness. Usually people refer to that word selfish. You're so selfish, right? And what they mean by that is you're behaving in a way I don't like.
Mm.
And that's what I mean by you being selfish. But we humans tend to kind of take it to an extreme and say, well, if someone's selfish, that means they love themselves too much. No, that's not what it means at all. It doesn't even come close to what it means. What it means is somebody else doesn't like your behavior because they want you to be doing something different.
Well, you know, the thing with that though, Walt, too, is, you know, to believe in that, isn't that really programming of other people's ideals of what something is? So we're buying into, you know, we're really, you know, if we're believing that, regardless of what it is, we're really believing what somebody else tells us. And which I'm not judging anybody, but at the same time, it's like, you know, it's the scarcity mentality, right? And the fear-based aspect. And that is the farthest, you know, you think of the two ends of the spectrum, right? And love being here and the fear-based being here, you know, that is the opposite. It's like, oh, if you give it all away, like, you know, there's only one. You can't share this.
That's right.
Can't share. I'm only one. Like, I can let you borrow it, but I need it right back. You know, it's
one
like
per customer.
One per. Hey, I only got so much to go around now.
That's right.
And if that was the case, if that truly was the case, you know, there wouldn't be, in my opinion, there wouldn't be as many people having children. There wouldn't be as many people getting married. There wouldn't be as many, because they would, I need to hoard my love. Like, I can't share it because, we only got so much now.
That's it.
Don't get greedy. I can give you a little. I might like you for a second. Then move along now. You know, it's like, it's like,
you've had more than your fair share.
Right. Like, don't get greedy now, lady. It's like, move along. Right. So, but the thing is that, you know, when we think about it is, and you brought up a great point. I love the analogy, by the way, that you guys were using about the masks. And I think that, because truly you think about that in an aircraft, you know, if there was an emergency, you can't help somebody if you're in trouble or duress yourself. And that's, but everybody wants to what? Help everybody else. They got to fix it. They got to be the fixer. You know, 99.9% of everybody, I don't know the exact figures. I don't think anybody does, but you know, most people, everybody wants to fix it. And, you know, it's like, you can't fix it if you're, you know, in the crap yourself. And you got to be able to put that oxygen mask on yourself first. Be like, oh, okay, now I got enough love to give here because I'm feeding it and saying,
there's
and
an
really
odd thing that happens with that too. There's an odd thing that goes along with that. The odd thing is that when you feel the need to fix this thing, but you first give yourself the love, what you find very often is it doesn't need fixing anymore.
Right. Well, you know,
the thing you thought needed fixing stops.
And here's the other thing I would like to almost try to challenge people out there to rethink their thinking, or think about this. it's really not about giving away anything. It's not
Right.
about giving away what you have. It's about holding space or energy for other people to come to the self-awareness of their love that they have with it. Yes, do you feel affection and love from other people
Sure.
by words, deeds,
Sure.
whatever? Yes, you do. But at the same time, you're showing emotion, or you're giving emotion, that energy, but at the same time you're not giving away your power. We talk about it in the sense of, give me your love. It's like, no, it's not about, hey, let's back up the pickup and shovel a, no, it's not about that. It's you come to the self-awareness that you have that within you. And when the energies connect, I believe then that is, those soul energies, right? So when you meet the one, and you're like, I remember before I got married, and I think I asked, was it my dad or somebody? And I was asking, how do you know, when to ask, the person that you're dating, like, hey, do you want to get married? Oh, you'll know. You'll just know. And it's like, how the hell do you know? People that don't know, they're trying to figure out when they'll know. And it's like, but the energy connection, it's almost like you're scanning all the frequencies, right? And then once you get to that soul connection, so to speak, you're matching maybe I don't know this for certain, but maybe that same love frequency, maybe both of you are, whatever, communicating on the similar channel, and be like, oh my God, now I know, like, hey, I can hear it. I can feel it, right? You just know. People just say, wow, you just know. It's like,
in other words, your father was right.
right. Geez, Daddy was psychic. I didn't even know.
Yeah, right.
It's like, Dad didn't even know he was psychic. But it's interesting though, because I think as a species, we have evolved with all these sensory abilities. But as through time, obviously, and with, to change and adapt, we get all these things in life. And I feel personally that they have gotten in the way to a degree, and it has almost created a barrier that we have to fight through to get back to ourselves, because it's a distraction from self. And so when we're looking for the self-love, it's all distracted with the smartphones and the computers and, just life, right? We call it, because that's just part of our life now. And so work and everything else. And so fighting or swimming through that barrier of, okay, I need to maybe remove some of those barriers. Maybe those are physical things I'm talking about, but are they filling a void? Are we seeking those? Are we, we all see people, again, that goes back to an addiction piece, but people that are workaholics. Why is that? Yes, some want to just do a great job, but other people, maybe they're trying to, probably compensate for something, maybe a lack of feeling love or appreciated. A thing that we were talking about today is about being seen, right? They want to be seen. And sometimes not just as a physical level, like, like I can see you, Walt, or you see me, but really see somebody, like see their soul, right? And because earlier today, actually, the whole family and I were watching the new Disney Plus, or sorry, it's on Hulu. The oh, good Lord, Soul is the new one that's out from.
Yes.
Yeah, so. And I was catching bits and pieces and kind of quizzing, and it was really kind of fascinating. But it spurred a, and of course it talks about in there about self-love, and it's interesting. It's always serendipitous, right? The way that the conversations come up. But talking about love and all that, and kind of like what your spark is and your purpose. And I think sometimes we walk around lost, and really when we realize that it's always there, again, we're looking for external things in our life. And so whether we're compensating and trying to fill it with physical material items like clothes or handbags, shoes, whatever, cars, whatever material items, or sometimes it's empty, you know, relationships. It's just, hey, I need people in my life. And that's where you see a lot of people that are just kind of, how do we want to call it, loose and single? I don't know what the appropriate
Okay.
term is, but but they date a lot. We'll just say that they date a lot,
Right.
and however they go about dating is their choice. But they're looking for something in somebody else. They're looking outside of themselves, is what boils down to at the end of the day, to fill a void within themselves. In the end of the day, that I would come back and say, because there's so many nuances, because you talked about this earlier. The challenge of and I can't remember what term you use, but talking about like the one size fits all, or, just take this one pill and, it works for everybody. Right. And we're in that society, like everybody wants a one-stop shop. And I don't think there's any one easy answer, because our energy, we're these souls having these earthly experiences, and so we're filled with these nuances, these energetic nuances. And I think that's why, and what I personally believe, why not one thing works for everybody else, because we're so unique individually.
Yeah, there are a lot of different modalities. There are a lot of different ways of trying to do that external outreach that you're talking about.
Right.
And how many of them? There are as many as there are people times 100. There are just that many.
It's just absolutely crazy.
But you mentioned technology a moment ago, and it made me think of something that I came up with. I actually came up with this about 2-3 years ago, something like that. A way to use technology to go back inside. Because I realized we all now carry these smartphones, right?
Yep.
And all of the smartphones have camera apps.
Yep.
And everybody knows how to take a selfie photo. Well, selfie mode is a mirror.
Yes.
So we're literally carrying a mirror around with us at all times that we can look in. So if we take out our smartphone and we open up the camera app, and we turn into selfie mode and look at ourselves, we can actually look ourselves in the eye. Well, not perfectly in the eye, because the camera's near the top, we're looking down a little bit, but it's pretty darn close. Right. And because we can do that, we can use the technology to reconnect to ourselves. And what I would challenge anybody to do, I've done this, anyone who's done mirror exercises has done this, but I would challenge people to take off the camera and look yourself in the eye and say to yourself, looking yourself directly in the eye and really mean it, say, I love me. And the reason I say that is, if you haven't done that before, it'll freak you out like crazy the first time that you do it.
Yeah.
But if you stick to it and keep doing that, what happens is you become more acclimated to it.
Right.
It becomes more familiar. And then if you keep doing it on a daily basis, you actually end up building self-esteem just by doing that.
I was kind of chuckling inwards, because I've done the mirror exercise, and I'm pulling up the phone right now. And so, because in reality, because you and I both know this is what's going to happen the first time actually somebody does it. Right. So, I'm looking at myself and I'm like, ooh, boy,
yeah, exactly.
My complexion isn't so great. That's not a
Where'd
good
that
angle.
pimple come from?
I got some extra Corona pounds kicking. I should have brushed my teeth today.
The wrinkles. Oh my God, the wrinkles.
But the inner critic comes out, right? The inner critic. Yeah. Oh my goodness. He comes out of the woodworks, or he or she, and like just starts because we're our own worst critic.
Absolutely.
But as we go, damn it, just overlook your flaws for a second and go, I love you really quick. And even though it's like, oh, I don't know, it looks like Shrek, I look like Shrek today. It's like, yeah, okay, Shrek, I love you. And then, whether you laugh and go, yeah, right. And then the next day do it again. And then by the time you're able to go, hey, good looking, how you doing? It's like, how you doing, Joey Tribbiani? And, it's saying, hey, I love myself, hey,
Yeah.
I'm starting to see things that I didn't before. It's like I'm able to look at myself with new eyes.
Or if the "I love you" part is too much, because I know
Yeah.
it was pretty much for me the first time.
You're
You can,
right. Pretty
it
uncomfortable.
was. Literally my first mirror exercise lasted 5 seconds. I love you. Oh God, I can't do this. That was my exercise for the day. But if you can't bring yourself to do that, you can still get the mirror out, or in this case, the
Right.
smartphone,
Right.
and look in the mirror and look in your own eyes and smile at yourself,
Mm,
and see if you can kind of make yourself smile just by smiling at yourself.
right.
And if you do that, you get the same effect. You
You-
don't actually have to say the words. If the words are too uncomfortable, just give yourself the smile. Give yourself the seductive smile.
I think the one that made me, before I did like a mirror exercise with myself, I did one in a class, was with strangers, and you just got partnered up. And
Yeah.
of course, this many years ago, pre-corona, right? But what the idea was is you held hands
Mm,
and you looked each other in the eye. And
yeah.
I tell you what, God, I have never been I felt so naked.
Yeah.
I felt so vulnerable. And it really made, because I was like, there's nowhere to hide. There was no,
Right.
And that was the thing. And I think so many times, and excuse me, but I think a lot of times we bullshit ourselves. We really try to put a break, even to ourselves, which is really sad, because even if we don't want to be honest with strangers or all forthcoming, we should at least be open and honest with ourselves. And I think a lot of times we don't want to confront that which is uncomfortable, right?
Mhm.
And when we start doing that, there's not much space to run. It's like, I don't know. I feel kind of uncomfortable. And it's like, because, our barriers are being dropped. And I don't know, because I don't have that personality trait. I don't believe. But I think when the whole corona thing, kicked off, and everybody's got to wear a mask, right? And
Right.
so people that had a hard time being seen, I feel personally that a lot of people that were having difficulty, now that has part of their physical identity covered, is having a little bit easier time to actually show up physically, because now they feel that a part of them is obscured. Where we see, some kids with developmental delays that don't really want to be seen, or, they don't really
Sure.
want people looking at them or whatever. And, where they'll walk around with physical, maybe glasses on, some people wear, and even adults, right? And so people will take, and this is pre-corona, but I feel that it's interesting the times that we're in as well, because now with masks, it's interesting. There's an aspect of us that, for some, that it's a little bit easier to show up now, because they feel that part of their identity is hidden. The people that were very, what I would call social butterflies, love to be out there. Hello, fabulous me, love to be out there. And, I think of my daughter, and even though she's very quiet, but she's a social butterfly, and same with my daughter or my wife. But now they feel that people are hidden from them, and it's harder to connect. And so, and I'm sure there's others out there, and they feel that there's an aspect of society now that is removed, like the energetic or the social connection. And it's an interesting dynamic. It's an interesting time. But I feel that even if you're, forced to wear because of whatever, if you got to wear facial coverings or whatever, again, if you're not feeling the connection, if you have that validation from within, we'll go back to the self-love, It's like, you know what? I don't need to see somebody smile today, even though it's nice. I love getting smiles and be like a nod or, a big grin or whatever. But at the same time, if you're already happy on the inside, if your heart's already smiling, then do you really need the outside validation? It sure helps, but do you need it?
Well, that's where the question that I raised last night in my mind really came into it. Because, like I said, I think we all do love ourselves. The question
Yeah.
in any given instance is, do we love ourselves enough right now? In other words,
Good
are we feeling
question.
enough of the love? Because,
Yeah.
for instance, with the example you gave with your daughter and your wife, they're so
Yeah.
used to having the interaction with the whole being.
Right.
They're not used to having the mouth and the nose covered up.
Right.
Well, if they're feeling enough self-love, then they'll find a way around that.
Right.
Like, for
Adapting.
instance,
Right.
they'll adapt it. Like I know that one thing I've been doing a lot with my eyes when I interact with somebody in a store, for instance, because that's about the
Right.
only time I'm wearing a mask anyways in a store.
Right.
So I'll do something really big with my eyes to make it, and sometimes I have to take my glasses off, otherwise they won't even see it. But but nevertheless, I'll do something with my eyes, eyebrows or
Yeah.
something, to make it really clear I'm expressing some sort of an emotion so that they can connect into something. And I got to doing that because I did enough self-love work where I got past the thing about, oh my God, we're all wearing masks now.
Right.
The self-love component, I raised it a notch. And when I did, I raised my game enough to find the alternative. Another example from my own life, and I'm actually in the process of putting together a main primary talk. I'm planning to do some public speaking, and then I'm also going to create some branch talks and so forth. But in that primary talk, I am bringing in a couple of stories from my own life, including one story I've never told in public before. I've told privately to my wife or to a few friends, but I've never told publicly about my experience going to college, because I'm planning to make some talks to some college students. And in that talk, I illustrate through my example just how much stress and pressure I was putting on myself at that time.
Right.
And then later on, I got out of college and I start trying different kinds of careers. I actually tried doing some sales, which was crazy because I was a complete and total introvert. But nevertheless, I tried doing that. And I was actually going to be pretty good at it, but I couldn't keep at it enough to actually succeed. And I didn't know why. I didn't know what was missing. And they were doing, they were doing whatever they could in terms of positive reinforcement and, trainings and books to read, everything from, I'm thinking the ones that they gave me W. Clement Stone, who was the inspiration of Jack Canfield. I was working for Stone's company at one point, selling one of his insurances. Yeah. And I was reading his book. I was reading all the other books, reading Napoleon Hill, listening to Tony Robbins. I was doing all that stuff. And I still couldn't get myself into the space of selling successfully, consistently. And so I always lost. I always gave up. I always moved away. My introversion just got in the way. And I always kept asking myself, why does this keep happening with me? Yeah, okay, I know they classify me as an introvert, but I'm a human being like any other human being. Extroverts are human beings too. Right. I have the same qualities they have. Why do I have so much trouble doing this? What's the secret that I'm missing? And that's part of my epiphany from last night. The secret was I just didn't love myself enough. If I had loved myself enough, my vibration would have been raised high enough on a more consistent basis that none of the objections would have mattered to me. None of the resistances would have mattered. They would just melted away.
What was
because I didn't give myself enough love, I couldn't quite raise the vibration up to a high enough point that I could maintain it.
I got to ask you, Walt, in sales, what was the job that you hated the most? What
cold calling.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very easy.
It's like the worst, right?
Real fast.
It's like the worst, right? I started when I came full time with the Army National Guard. I started as a recruiter.
Oh, okay.
And if you think of selling something that's tangible, I mean, those that of us that sell things that are non-tangible is even harder, right? But one of the things was this cold calling, and I absolutely hated it. And it was the same thing. And I remember going through books of leads calling people and getting yelled at and all this. And I just felt my energy, like I just felt defeated.
You get real small.
Yeah. And I just felt like, why am I even doing this? This sucks. Like all these,
Right.
like it's hard. And I still remember today, there was one guy, he was an older senior guy there. And he was the only guy out of everybody that would kind of tell when I had been doing, and he would kind of give me a pep talk and, get me going again. And because I didn't have that internal voice.
Exactly.
I didn't have that. And and he saw that it took him and be like, ooh, he's, he's shot. Right. And so it took, that individual for me to bring, motivate me again and be like, cause at that point I was kind of done. And a long story short, I didn't stay in recruiting very long. I didn't like that. I didn't, I didn't like that aspect.
And there's no reason why you should. It's not like you
Right.
have to do that in order to be a
Right.
complete human being.
But
I was just trying to answer a question for myself. That was
right. And but the thing is going back to that, I think is great because it brings up a great point. It doesn't matter if it's cold calling. It doesn't matter if it's digging ditches. It doesn't matter if you're operating a truck or whatever it is.
It could be just asking somebody out on a date.
Yeah. Right.
I mean,
if you
there's a major portion for it,
Right. If you're not starting with at a great level of loving yourself, you can't share that with anybody.
Absolutely. You gotta have something to give.
Not gonna. You gotta have some juice. You gotta have some juice in the tank. You know what I'm saying? It's like
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's certainly something crazy, but cold calling was the worst. I remember that.
Yeah, cold calling is really tough, no doubt about that.
And my hats off to people that make it look easy. But
you know what I've noticed about them, because I did make a study of the people I knew who were good at cold calling, and you know what? It was as easy for them as water rolling off their back. It was not challenging, and they were in many ways what we might think of as flawed people. They had other things going on, other issues in their lives, but that wasn't one of them.
Right.
In that arena, they just loved themselves. They felt so good about themselves, and there was nothing that was going to stop them. They would try to teach me. I'm sure you heard this too. Well, you treat it as a mental issue. Like, well, that if you do 100 attempts, you're going to get X number of them. They're going to turn out to be yeses and all. And you keep going for they kept arguing all that, but I knew
keep going for the no. Go for the celebrate every no.
That was not what was actually working inside with them. Right. I knew that wasn't it. And to find out what it really was that it was their internal self-love that they couldn't even identify. That's the thing. They didn't even realize what it was.
But do you think too, Walt, that sales or maybe cold calling, but sales was their why? Like, so in life we have, again, I'm going to go back to the show because, it was fresh in my head, but talking about your spark, your purpose in life, right?
Yeah.
And I know people, I have clients all the time, like, what is my purpose? And I've even been on that journey too, right? Like, what am I going to do when I grow up? And, like trying to find your why, like what really drives you, like what grabs you by the cojones and be like, damn it, I'm good at this. Like I get excited when I, think of, again, going into, who was a sale or the guy like, do it now. Yeah. I'm thinking of Napoleon Hill and those other guys, but, talking about like what really lights a fire, like and a lot of people don't even realize that, but I think it gets back to, again, we'll go back to, if you don't even like yourself, if you don't have enough love for yourself, you're not even going to begin to be able to go, I don't even know what my interest is, or I don't even know what my why is. Like, why do I get up in the morning? I don't know, because I got to pay bills. Well, that's kind of a crappy answer. It's like, you should be excited about something. Well, I love video games. Well, maybe find a job about video games. I love animals. Find a job about, that involves animals, because that way, every morning when you go in, you're passionate about, helping them or helping people or whatever the case is, finding your purpose, your why. And I think once, and not saying that again, like you shared, Walt, is like those salespeople that, that was just easy for them. We all have other issues in our life, but if we're really
Right.
good in a certain area of life, like, it's like because we're passionate about it, it's like that fuels our why. Right. And it's just like people can feel it when you get excited and it's like,
No
oh
doubt.
my God, you could do, and whether it's sales or whether it's real estate or whatever somebody's doing, it's nuts when
What
you're
I would
able.
submit though, but what I would
Yeah.
submit is that why, that passion, that spark, that thing that
Yeah.
just makes you say, yes, I want to do that. That comes directly from the self-love.
Yes.
Without the self-love, you can't find that. What is it people are
Right.
always trying to do? They're trying to find their passion. I spent years trying to find mine. What I
Right.
didn't realize is that the passion wasn't out there. The passion was in my self-love. I just didn't
Right.
know that. And you also made another great point too, and this is something we all do. We talk about it. We talk about it in terms of, well, I lost my connection with my internal being.
Right.
Never lost it. It was there all along. It's been there all along. What we lost track of is what it looks like.
Yeah.
It's been there. I mean, I feel it. I see it. I deal with it every day. I just don't recognize it for what it is.
Yeah.
It's there.
Yep.
It's always
Yep.
there. It never went away. So we never actually lose the connection. It's more like we forget that is the connection.
Yep.
That thing, that indescribable thing inside of ourselves that we've always known is there. That's the connection. And when I recognize that, then I realize I do love myself.
Right.
I do have the connection. I may not understand what the connection is always saying to me, but I do have it.
Right. Right. Well, and going back to the analogy of the moms, right? Because they're so busy. And because I hear this over and over and over again, especially from that niche, is that, here, a young woman starts off 18, 19, whatever. And if she has children early on and maybe gets married at an early age, all of a sudden she has all these plans and passions and is aligned with herself and all this crazy stuff. But then she feels now she has a child or children or whatever the case, and she feels that she needs to put their needs before hers.
Mm-hmm.
And so for life just happens for years on, continues going on. Then one day when she's 30 or 40, whenever, and she all of a sudden has this epiphany or something and saying, I don't even know like what I like anymore. Like, and then we start seeing these midlife crisis, like trying to, I feel lost. I don't, I don't even know what my interests are. I don't even know.
See them. We experience them. What are you talking about?
You're right. But it's always been there. It's just been put dormant because we're putting other people's needs in front of ours for so long. It just becomes a norm, right? Because again, going back to, I would feel guilty and I think it's a survival, part of it, I think is survival too. It's like, but I think about it like this too, is, a mother, we'll take the mother again. And if the mom does not eat during childbirth, guess what? The child will die.
Right.
Because the body sustains the child in the womb. If once the child is born and she's breastfeeding, guess what? To give nutrition to the child, guess what? Mom's got to eat, right? And, consume stuff. So, if she's like, no, give it all to the kid. Well, at the same time, talking about that, you have to, again, going back to the analogy of putting your mask on first so you can help other people. I don't think it's it's a something to feel guilty about,
No.
And I think it's more of I almost want to say like, other people's, construct of, and I don't know when it started.
Program.
Yeah, it's a programming. And it's like, don't you think that you should, put, your children's needs, like,
I
Okay.
always get the hairs on the back of my neck start to rise when I hear a sentence begin with the words, "Don't you think you should?" As soon as I hear that, I'm worried. I know that I'm about to be misled in some way. I know for a fact that somebody else's agenda is at play here. It's not me, it's somebody else.
Right. Yep. Somebody else's agenda saying,
Yeah.
because you started that with think. It's like, nah, I just know.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
I think that's, but it's so diverse. It is so multi-level that again, there's no one right answer. But I think Walt, that the hit on it over and over again is, for most people, going back to the beginning of saying, where are you at with loving yourself? How's that going for you? You know,
In fact, there are a number of teachers, and I can think of a couple off the top of my head. One of them is Napoleon Hill. We mentioned him. Another one is Neville Goddard. But there are a number of these teachers who, well, heck, the philosopher Rene Descartes did this too.
right.
Start from the very basic, from the very root of the whole system, so to speak. And they say that at the very, very beginning, there is I am. Right?
Yeah.
That was a big Neville Goddard phrase. I
Yep.
am. Everything
I
starts
am.
with I am. Consciousness, the whole works.
Yes.
And I liked it. I mean, Cindie and I have done all the books and everything. We've enjoyed dissecting and going through all the Neville books and all the Neville concepts, detail by detail. It's great. But there was always that one piece that bugged me about it. I said, there's something missing from that. And that was part of last night's epiphany. I realized it's not a complete concept of I am unless the I am includes I love me. If it's just abstract I am, it doesn't have the same impact. It doesn't have the same role. It doesn't play that creative role the way that the great teachers talk about. Without the I love me portion, it just falls flat.
Right.
So anytime that we're talking about a primary axiomatic idea like I am, it's important, I think, to remember that I am includes I love me. And that if you try to separate I love me from I am, you basically are cutting the legs out from under it.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. Well, I've lost count how many times, like during readings, like Spirit will step forward and just sharing, like, and it's typically the first and foremost, like, message that, hey, just want to let you know I love you, that you're being loved. And of course, that's an external emotion being conveyed, whether by spirit or somebody physically. But, I think that's so important.
It is.
Because it typically is lacking in a lot of areas.
And like I was saying earlier, the good news, and this is kind of why I wanted to address the whole narcissism thing to kind of get that out of the way. The good news is you really can't love yourself too much, which means we can just keep loving ourselves more and more every day.
Right.
And when we do that, our lives get better.
Right.
Tremendously better. I mean, that's what the mirror exercises taught both of us. We both did. I don't know how long you did yours. I still do mine.
I don't.
On
I guess.
on my first attempt, I did it I was planning to do it for 30 days because Jack Canfield had said, if you do the mirror exercises for 30 days, all the chatter going on in your head goes away. I said, boy, I'd love to have that chatter go away. So for the first time in my life, I actually stuck to a 30-day program. And by day 30, sure enough, the chatter had gone away. And I got so excited, I did it for 50 days. And then I stopped for a while. And then I went back to it. And I've kind of had like a go back to it and leave it alone relationship since then. But lately I do it just about every day, because every single day that I do that exercise of talking to myself and praising myself in the mirror, I build up my self-esteem, my self-love, and I get much more self-confident as a result. I mean, I can look back to when I first started doing that, which is about maybe 3 years ago, something like that, and compare myself now to then. And I don't know of a way to quantify it, but it's just so obvious to me how much more confident I am now. And I'm sure it's because of the mirror exercises. I also have a friend who used to be a co-host here on the show. He would be an occasional co-host, he and his wife. His name's Mike. He lives in Middletown near here. And he actually came onto the show one time to share his experience doing mirror exercises after he had heard me going on about mirror exercises. And to this day, he tells me it made all the difference in his life. He had all these
Wow.
issues he was dealing with, and to a large extent, he still deals with them. But doing the mirror exercises, it was like getting into the fast lane in terms of solving them.
Isn't it
Because
interesting?
it really is interesting. Yeah. I mean, people want that quick way to get stuff fixed. Well, there it is, guys. Do the I love me work. And boy, that'll really pick it up fast.
Here's a problem though, Walt, that I've found.
What's that?
And this doesn't apply to everybody. I know it doesn't, but some people don't want to put in the work. Some people don't want to do the work.
Then I have to ask, how much do you really want it?
Well, right. How bad do you how bad, you know, because
it doesn't sound like you want it all that much.
You know, but at the same time, they want the pill effect. They just want to take a pill and done. And, you know, but understanding that they have to put in work to get the results. This is like going to the gym, right? And it's like, you just don't take one. I was talking about this the other day about, you know, you just don't go and take one Pilates class and expect to be, you know, the next gymnast for the, you know, the next Olympics. So, you know, you got to continually put in the time and continually do it.
There is one good thing though. The one good thing is, I think the hardest part is getting past the first 10 days. The first 10 days and the first 2 are the rough ones.
Do you feel that's
a little bit easier?
Do you feel that's creating new muscle memory as far as making it a new normal?
Yeah, it's doing that, but it's also creating a new filter, because we have, like, our brains and our bodies are filtration systems, right? The stream of David was making that point yesterday. And in that filtration, that's where all the tapes play, right? That's where the old tapes play. Well, we're basically creating a new tape, and it takes a little while to record that tape and really burn it into the system. But once it's burned in, then it's easy to play. I mean, we know how easy it is to play tapes. I mean, once they're playing, you can almost not even stop them. Well, that's what happens here. You start playing this tape, and that's why it's like 10 days or so. After you've been doing it for like 10 days, it becomes so much easier. It's like, oh, shoot, I can do the mirror exercises today. That's no big deal. Whereas 10 days ago, it's like, oh, God, do I have to do this?
It's like, right. Well, it's like, you know, I can't remember, somebody brought up the number, like, to learn something new, it takes only like, was it 72 times or whatever, like muscle memory to you know, like, and then, but to rewrite something, it takes like, I don't know, like it's almost double that. So you almost have to undo what you learned and then learn something new. So you're rewriting, in a sense, neural pathways in the brain and all the good juju that's going on, right? And you know, and I also use the analogy of like anybody that's ever, I used to be a big smokeless tobacco user back in the military, right? But one of the things, so anybody that's ever, you know, quit smoking or chewing tobacco, whatever, know that it's not really all that easy. And so it takes time, right? So in the beginning, it's like, ooh, this sucks. And then, but after a week or two, it's like, oh, it's getting easier. And then you don't even realize it after a while. That it's just like, oh, I don't even remember when I quit. You know, it's like, it's been so long.
That's right.
So that's the same premise of, if you just keep on doing it, it'll just become the new norm and you won't even think about it, right?
Well, I can tell one thing, Dean. I can tell after our first hour doing this as an official team, this is going to be a good team. I know that.
Right? I'm excited for Tuesday. Let me tell you. Let me tell you. It's it's going to be good. No, it's going to be fun. It's going to be great. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. So I do want to take a moment to remind people there's the LOA Today app, which I'm going to be updating very soon to shift things around. We're going to put David's bio under a former co-host section, and we're going to add Dean in, make a few other changes that need to be made. But you know, use the LOA Today app to send in your questions, because among other things, Dean is the military medium. And if you have a psychic question that you want to ask him, maybe you already asked Rita, but you want to ask Dean, send it in. That's what it's for. But in the meantime, Dean, it's been great. And thank you very much. Thank you especially to our podcast listeners as well. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye.